All right, Nick, it's great to have you here. Welcome to the Leaders Who Care series.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Mark. Appreciate it.
No, I think you're going to show people why you're going to be like the Show Me State. Is that Kansas or whatever? I can't remember which one
Yeah,
it is. The
yeah.
Show Me State. Why why you really are a leader who cares. I didn't make it up or anything. So to start, if you could briefly introduce yourself, and my asterisk there with men always is not what you do, not what your title is, whatnot, but where are you from originally? Where you are now? Family. What does family look like? Whatever you want to share, and and maybe something you've never told anybody you want to reveal to the world right now. That always gets interesting once in a while.
Yeah.
So let us know your name and everything and a little bit about you.
Yeah. Well, my name is Nick Tietz, and I am a serial innovator and entrepreneur. I help develop and discover assets and activate people and ideas. I've been doing that for, well, the better part of 20 years. And, even from when I started as a young kid, I was adopted from Bogota, Colombia. And my parents came down there and they said I was one of the most active kids at the orphanage that I was at. It's called Los Pasingos. And they came down and they brought me up to the United States, to Minnesota, where I've been most of my life.
Did they tell you
And
how cold it was going to be?
yeah, right. It does get a little chilly here. We don't have mild, well, we've had mild winters recently, but as a kid, man, the snow was piled high. It was just like grumpy old men. And it was a lot of fun, but
Yeah.
and then the summers are mosquito filled and moist, right? Very humid here in Minnesota. So I think that's what gives us such a good work ethic, is that we got to work hard for a lot of stuff because the seasons keep changing on us to the extremes.
Tell us about your family and do you have brothers, sisters, family?
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I grew up. I have one paternal. That's all right. I have one biological brother. My parents had one kid, and he's younger than me, so I'm the oldest. And we grew up in the Twin Cities, and then you know, out of nowhere, about a year and a half ago, I found my birth mom.
Oh,
And it's been an absolute game changer for our entire family, um, to
wow.
finally find her, to learn that I have other siblings, and I got to meet her, and my adoptive parents, which I call my parents, they were very supportive. My aunt and uncle were very supportive. My mom passed away during COVID, not of COVID, so she didn't get to see this other part of my life that we've always wondered about, and I often thought about. And it's just it's so unbelievable, that I sometimes I feel like when I start describing it that it's like being in a movie, because how it happened was was crazy. Um, and then going out to Philadelphia to meet her for the first time and then immediately meet my siblings. I brought my whole family with, and I mean, it really was just a life-changing experience for all of us.
Yeah, I can't. I understand when people say I can imagine, and I think they do it sincerely, but you can't really imagine necessarily. And you see movies about this type of thing too, every so often. Um, was it like total acceptance both sides?
It was, yeah. So I my wife had bought a 23andMe test for me, I don't know, 10 years ago. And every time I'd pop on it every couple of months and I'd look in Bogota to try to find people that had my birth name. And because I knew my birth name, I mean, we've got all the birth certificates and all that kind of stuff. And I would send a message in English and Spanish saying, like, hi, my name is Nick. I'm a normal person living in Minnesota, but I'm looking to see if there are any connections, and might you know this woman's name? I know that she lived in Bogota this time period, and nothing, just all goose eggs. Some people would respond, most didn't. probably emailed, I don't know, a couple hundred people over like a 5-year period. And then, and they were all very low percentages. If anybody's familiar with 23andMe, it tells you like how much a percentage of connection might you have.
Right.
And then I found someone that popped up and they had like a 15% connection biological connection. And I messaged this person and she emailed me back and she's like, Nick, my grandmother's name is Gabriella. And about 5 minutes later, I got an email saying, Pablo, is this you?
Wow.
And
I got chills. Will you
it
tell me
was
that?
surreal.
I
It was
literally, I
just,
literally, I
it
literally
was
have
just
chills when you
amazing.
tell me that. That's an incredible. And so you received the call, and was your mouth just like jaw dropping?
Yes. It was amazing. I mean, I responded back. We started texting that day. And then I said, well, you know, would you be okay if we did a phone call tomorrow? And then so we called each other the next day. And I mean, I got to hear her voice for the first time ever as and she hadn't heard my voice, and like because I was 6 months old when she gave me up at the orphanage. And so she hasn't seen me in, 47 years. And and then so we talked. And then we didn't do a Zoom or anything like that, even though like I use this technology every day.
Right.
Um, but then we talked on the phone and she was very emotional. I was emotional. She told me about the family and she was like, there's other things I want to share, but I want to wait until we, can meet. But she was to your point, she was very accepting. She wanted to meet, I wanted to meet. And so it was probably, I don't know, I think it was like 3 weeks later. Um, Packed up my family, my wife and my 3 kids, and we flew out to Philadelphia and we met for the first time in person. And it was just unbelievable because
Yeah.
she's this cute little Colombian woman that's been in the United States for 47 years. She literally came to the US a year after I came to the US, and we just couldn't find each other. I mean, she was looking, you know, and she married a CIA agent and down in Bogota, who was a U.S. diplomat. She traveled the world. She lived all over the U.S. And I mean, so she's been very Americanized and
Wow.
just had this big hole in her heart. And nobody in her family knows that I exist,
Wow.
except for now my brothers and sisters. I mean, this is truly like movie making, kind of like, I mean, all my kids, we're all like, we're still floored that we found my birth mom.
Yeah, no, it's incredible.
So it's
You know,
just been, it's been unbelievable.
you think with a CIA guy, you might have been able to find you, or something. But I mean, that's
Yeah, right. They
uh
could they could track me down or something, like there's a lot of State Department stuff going on back then. But yeah, so it turns out that, my family lineage is from Spain. They were Sephardic Jews that escaped persecution. They moved to Bogota, practiced Catholicism by day and Judaism by night. And so I've just been learning all sorts of things about my history. My grandfather was an entrepreneur in St. Cloud, or sorry, in St. Cloud. My grandfather was an entrepreneur in Bogota. Um, he was shot in the head at a very young age, survived. My brother and sister, biological brother and sister, are also entrepreneurs, as am I. And so I guess it runs in the family.
Well, when you have all that stuff going on, that's entrepreneurial-ish in itself, basically, because you're
Yeah.
pivoting, you're moving, you're this, you're that, whatever. Well, that may be the best story that
Mhm.
was never told to the world, just told to the world, which is great. Thank you for sharing that, and congrats. I mean,
Yeah.
it's momentous. They say Where people live the longest and are the happiest, they found that the thing that fills people's hearts and souls more than anything is belonging. And what more belonging
Hmm.
than the story you just told, basically. It's
Thank you.
right on the money. So that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing the story with us. Really appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What were you like as a kid and a teenager? Were you doing the lemonade stand, Mr. Entrepreneur, or were you doing what were you doing?
No, it's a good question. I mean, I think I'm a master generalist. And I say the master part very loosely, but meaning like I like lots of things. And I like getting into things intensely for very short periods of time. But so like I played every sport. I think the only sport I didn't play was hockey,
The best
lettered in
one.
most of them. Yeah, right. You're right. Um, when I say lettered in most of them, meaning like, I mean, like I can get there really quickly. I've lots of instruments, music, not great at math, but I try. And but I enjoy arts, crafts, cooking. Like I like trying things and figuring out new ways to do them. So I think I'm nowhere near on the spectrum of inventor. I haven't invented anything in my life, but I'm very curious and I'm very open-minded and I want to solve problems in interesting ways. And I think all through my childhood and then college, um, is all it's really been about demonstrating that there are new and different ways to get things done, to solve problems, and ultimately I like saying, I don't mean like make people happy, like please them, but you know, there are problems and challenges that we can work on, but sometimes we need to take a different approach to get to the answer.
Can you run for office, please?
No, I'm not from this country.
Hmm.
But
Well, you
but
can
I
still run
do
for office, can you not? You can't become
that
president.
that is true. That is true. I don't think I would make a good I'm not political enough, but I really do love solving wicked problems.
That's why you have to run because you're not political. That's you said you want different ways to do things. So you that's what you do.
Yeah, yeah.
I vote for you. So your journey is obviously super interesting, in what you just described for sure, and your education is interesting too because I'm just going to look at it again. University of Minnesota Naval Reserve Officer training, for example. You got your bachelor's in journalism communication. I guess all this I'm going to say aligns with what you said about you like different things. Then you had animation and graphics at, Minnesota College of Art. A lot of it overlapping each other to boot.
Well, yeah, it's and Mark, so that's so something to kind of like pull out there. So I I wasn't sure what I wanted to do after high school. I mean, I knew I wanted to be creative and I was really interested in like computers and athletics. So I thought, you know what? I want to do something that I called like therapeutic modalities and like basically I wanted to use like computers to increase athletic performance. And then I realized that I didn't like computer programming and I definitely didn't want to take the time to study the body. But I had received a full ride naval scholarship to the University of Minnesota. And it's the only time that I doubted myself and that I was like, there's no way that I can walk on to play for the Minnesota Gophers. But I think I could play at a smaller school and I really wanted to play football. So I went to the University of St. Thomas. And while I was there, I realized that after I didn't want to do computer programming, that I needed a whole different career path. And so I created a customized major with animation, journalism, and mass communication. But in order to do that, I had to go to a bunch of different schools to get that done. Really, somebody should have said, I think you're an entrepreneur. Like, I don't know why you're making your own major. Like, you should study entrepreneurship. So,
So
but at any rate, I finished, I graduated. I ended up declining my commission in the Navy because I wanted to go make movies and be creative. So I moved to or I went to boot camp. I finished my naval stint, went to San Diego, and then a guy in San Diego saw that I could do a lot with video and animation and motion graphics. And so he gave me money to actually start my first company in Southern
I have a
California.
quick question
Kind of how
though.
I got started.
I have a
Yeah.
quick question though. You were a seaman, right? Torpedo weapons retriever.
A torpedo weapons retriever, yes.
When was that?
So that was after I finished college. Then I went enlisted, and so in Southern California, I was on the submarine base. And most people don't know, but when submarines are practicing, they have to shoot the torpedoes. Well,
Hmm.
somebody has to go pick the torpedoes up, so you naturally need a torpedo weapons retriever. So our
So
job
you
was to
you volunteered?
yeah, basically, yeah. It was honestly, it was a really cool experience. We were a tiny crew, about 18 people, and we would sit in the ocean off San Clemente Island, and then when the subs and the I'm forgetting the name of the airplanes that would track torpedoes from the sky. I sound like a dummy now because I can't remember the name of the
No.
vehicle, but when they were done, they would blow a little air bubble in the torpedo, and a balloon would pop up, and the torpedo would bob in the water, and it was our job to go find it like a needle in a haystack, bearing 270 for the next 3 hours,
Oh
and
my
go find
God.
this thing bobbing in the water.
They
And
couldn't
pick it
identify
up.
it more clearly. And the second question I have is, it was non-explosive, I'm assuming.
Yeah, oh yes, these were all dummy torpedoes. So we'd pick them up, and then in between doing that, we'd also train the fleet to go to the Persian Gulf. So we'd have to role play. In my time there, I was Junior Sailor of the Year because I helped save the ship one night. And so what happened was it was I think it was in January, so it's pretty cold in the Pacific Ocean, and we were just leaving San Clemente Island to go out to find one of these torpedoes. And all of a sudden, our boat, we came to kind of a screeching halt. There was a storm that night, and there was a weather buoy that was anchored to the ocean floor, but it was just high enough in the water that our ship ran it over, and the line it was about this thick, that was attached to the anchor in the buoy wrapped around our rudder, and we couldn't go forward. We were basically stuck. And so I volunteered
Of course.
because, again, master of none, but I knew how to swim pretty well. So I threw on a wetsuit, and I swam like 15 feet down and 20 feet under the boat with a knife in the pitch black, and cut this line off. And now, in order to do this in the middle of the night, you have to, we were duct taping battle lanterns to these really long metal shafts that we had. So they were underwater so I could see.
Mm.
And all I could see out of the corner of my eyes were like whoosh. I could see things going by me. I didn't know if they were sharks. I think they were seals. They weren't sharks, but it was very unnerving. And I had to go underwater and cut this nylon line that was like cement to get us free. And then we turned around and, made it back to our,
I don't think
port.
I don't think Johnny Cash, it was Johnny Cash. Did he sing the song Toe the Line or something? I don't think he was thinking about that. But you know what? And it's interesting what experiences we have along the way, along the journey, that each one of them does impact one way or another, because it's an achievement, it's a discipline, it's a adrenaline rush, it's everything a lot of times. And you either cherish and learn from those experiences, or you complain, if you will,
Yeah.
about these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think that, we've got opportunities in our life to do things. And the big thing that I say to other entrepreneurs is like, do you want to walk through the door, or do you want to talk about what could have been? And trust me, it's pot calling the kettle black. There's plenty things that could have been. But and I'm certainly not a risk taker, a big risk taker, but I'm willing to try to take calculated risks along the way. Um, but I do like to prove people wrong, not as like a contrarian, but just to say, like, I think this can be done. Let's go do it, and let's go do it together.
Well, you know what they say about the word impossible? It's I'm possible.
Ah, that's good. I haven't heard that before. I like that.
Yeah, and absolutely. So, we founded our firm on the basis that leaders in their organizations can do way better when they're doing good at the same time. and
Hmm.
it's taken, for whatever reason, the world 9 million years to realize that they're not separate. Can you describe a little bit about how your career evolved in positions where you were using, and it kind of relates to what we just said, you were using engineering, creative artistry, technology, and that whole of service mentality to make a difference for both economic and social impact. Give us a little summary of your career and how that evolved, putting all those together.
Yeah. Well, I think I had originally started a business doing like video production and motion graphics, and I worked really hard to grow it year over year for like 5 years, and then the economy kind of tanked underneath me, and I didn't do a good job of managing that, and so I had to shut that business down because we just literally ran out of money, and it didn't just crush me, it crushed a lot of things around me, and thankfully I've been blessed over and over with a supportive wife, a supportive family that made sure that we didn't completely fail. And I think what I learned from that is that your support networks matter. And if you are thinking about innovating or entrepreneuring, it's really important to find those networks. But what I discovered along the way is there's a lot of people that don't have that kind of network built in naturally. If they're not around other people that have been monetarily successful, this creates a really challenging environment for them. Because, I do think that adage of like birds of a feather flock together. I mean, if you're around people that are naysayers, it's easy to be a naysayer. In my time in the fitness industry, if you want to be healthy, go hang out with 10 healthy people because your behaviors and your lifestyle will change.
Right.
And I think that's the same thing with entrepreneurship. If you want to be in entrepreneurship, go hang out with other entrepreneurs that are doing it, not just talking about it. And if you're someone that wants to support entrepreneurs, come be with other people that are supporting and trying to help people that way. And ultimately, like, I think that that's part of what, God's mission for me is to impact people's lives so profoundly they can't imagine living any other way. And I really use that as a lens to think about the things that I'm doing and how I can be a service to help other people. Or as a friend of mine says, like, how can I be a blessing for you today? And a legit blessing without asking for anything in return. And I try to do that as often as I can. And that service model is what I've built into the last two businesses that I've been one that I started and it didn't quite make it. And then the one that I'm currently working with, which is ILT Academy.
They say that you can either have the mantra, you can either have the mindset of you win and you lose, or you can have the mindset of you win and you learn.
Yes.
And some may say, "Oh, that's ridiculous," but it is a mindset how you take it, and it relates totally to what we said before about you going down in the ship to cut it out. You can learn from every single thing. In fact, one of my favorite books in the world is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl,
Okay.
and he talks about there is meaning in every single thing if you really look, and it changes your whole mindset. And you're right. You are a little bit of who you hang around with too, because of
Yeah.
that mindset. Can you share any experience or accomplishments that stand out for you now in some of the work you've done?
Um, I think one of the things that I'm most proud of, with our, with, well, with my last startup, I had, with four other co-founders, we developed a solution to help people with invisible and visible disabilities communicate with law enforcement in a moment of crisis. And um, it was a really, really tough idea to bring to the market because we're taking two groups of people that don't always like each other, people with mental illness, people with schizophrenia, PTSD, autism, epilepsy, and then law enforcement and first responders that want to care and keep people safe. But when they're missing information, they don't always act appropriately
Mm.
or um, in the best interest of the person that's having a breakdown, especially when they're in a moment of crisis. And I while we were doing that startup, we raised a good chunk of money. We built the technology. We had it all over the state of Minnesota. And I had a guy call me, um, I think it was on Monday, and he was like, it was on a Monday. And he was like, Nick, you guys saved my life last night. I was having a mental breakdown. I was having suicidal ideation. I wanted to kill myself. I was talking to my brother, and my brother called the police. But when they pulled up into my driveway, your technology helped them know what my situation was, my mental illness, my medicines, the family members that they should contact to help calm me down. And they were able to get me to the hospital without anything happening to me. And I don't know if I'd be alive today without the work that you guys have put in to bring this and make this a real thing.
You only need one story like that to make it all worthwhile, right?
Yes. Yeah. And and it was that was really pushing us forward. And but through that process, we'd raised over $1 million. We had this in the hands of a lot of people and a lot of police departments. We couldn't raise enough money. And eventually the company had to shut down. And unfortunately, I was one of the co-founders. I had amazing co-founders, but I was the only guy, I was the youngest guy on the team, and I needed a day job. And so I started to think about like, well, what else could I do? How could I really liked doing that. I've done 6 startups. What's my next one going to be? And I didn't know what it was. And then I was talking to one of my venture capital friends, and they were like, Nick, you know what? We'll fund your next idea. And if that idea doesn't work, we'll fund your next one. And if that doesn't work, we'll fund your next one. And I was like, dude, okay, I don't understand this. You won't fund the business that I'm currently doing that's saving people's lives, but you'll fund my next thing. And they're like, yeah, because you've done stuff that in areas that are very difficult and you've launched them and you've made them successful. They just haven't been $1 billion ideas. And we want to fund $1 billion things. And I went, oh, that's part of the game I didn't understand. How many other entrepreneurs don't know that? There's there's this part of the game that like what ideas need to look like to be investable. And it made me think outside of the Y Combinators and the Techstars and some of these other really good programs that are out there, how many entrepreneurs have non-billion dollar ideas that should exist that could have a positive impact on our community? And I don't think everything needs to be a social idea,
Hmm.
but I also don't think that every idea needs to be worth $1 billion.
Hmm.
And how could I create an organization to teach and help other entrepreneurs how to get their idea to market, how to accelerate through the idea phase and secure the capital they need so they can go and bring this idea or concept to the market. And so that's my second achievement, not crowning achievement, but I feel very proud is that I started it with that mission about 4.5 years ago. We've been able to train almost 700 entrepreneurs. Those founders, most first time founders, have raised over $24 million in the last 2 years to move their idea forward. And they're not just raising money. Many of them that start a business but don't raise enough capital to do like a venture backable thing have turned their business into some other money making venture, or more importantly, sometimes get off a bad idea to go find one that's going to help you get where you want or create the impact you need. And so I
Yeah.
think, we're making some new waves and supporting entrepreneurs that may have been traditionally overlooked because they're in the Midwest and they're not sitting in one of our coasts. And so I'm very, very proud of that work, but more proud of my team and the entrepreneurs that we've been able to serve.
Yeah, and relating to what we had said before, at some part here was even in that process, there was a lot of learning that was done, and not just on maybe the financial part or the obvious part, but on the parts that make you go the next step or not go the next step in that direction to go a different step type of thing versus drinking the Kool-Aid till the end of time and not going anywhere. Type of thing, which sometimes
Yeah,
a lot of times that happens. And no one understands this is the right thing, and I'm sticking
yeah,
to it till
yeah,
for 100 years or whatever. So
Yeah. I,
it's
I, I,
go ahead.
I totally agree. I mean, there's a lot of good ideas out there, and there's even more bad ones. We need to get off the bad ideas, but let's fail small, right? Let's fail small. Let's figure out if this is a thing or not a thing. But you do have to lean into it. You have to lean into it so far that the only thing that's next is to fall on your face. And a lot of people are afraid of failing.
Yeah.
But no one said you had to fall on the cement. Like, put out some padding, have some people there to catch you, right? Like, that's the secret. Don't hit your face. That hurts, right?
Tell me about you got the ILT Academy, studios, and an endowment fund, if I'm correct. Can you share about
Mhm.
the
Correct. Yep.
distinction? Yeah.
Well, I originally had started a startup studio because I wanted to raise venture capital so that I could form teams and groups of people and hire entrepreneurs. That's still my big dream is I believe that entrepreneurship is a vocation. I want to find the best entrepreneurs, meaning the ones that are really serious and they want to do this. And I want to hire them and I want to put them in an environment where they can practice that skill. Just like if you were a brain surgeon out on the side of the road is a bad idea. But a brain surgeon in a hospital where you're expecting to find them, better idea, right? So that's my dream, to create a
Well,
venture
hold
studio.
it.
Yeah.
Unless the entrepreneur fell flat on his face on the cement and the brain surgeon's right there.
Then, then, yes. Well, timing matters, right? Yeah. Um, so that was the concept for ILT Studios. But while I was floating that concept and I was starting to raise some money around it, I I met another group that said, Nick, hey, we don't want to give you money to like start that idea. Can you help us train entrepreneurs in some rural communities around Minnesota? And I said, well, I could take the operational plan that I had and make it training curriculum for other people. And so I started doing training and education, and that became ILT Academy. And then, but ILT Academy is a for profit because I wanted to be able to raise money so that I could build the tech platform and like really figure out how to grow and bring it to as many communities around the world that want to unlock the talent that's there. There's a lot of important problems in communities all over the place, and they're not just going to get solved by Silicon Valley.
Right.
But if you don't have the right skill set, it's never going to happen, right? And so we got to work on that. But in order to also make that happen, I created an endowment fund because my hope and dream is that as entrepreneurs are successful, some that come through our program and some that are just successful on their own, that they hear about ILT Academy and they're like, I wish I had had that safety net or that soft landing pad when I was learning how to entrepreneur.
Hmm.
And they will put funds in the endowment fund so that we have an evergreen way to support early and emerging the 0 to 1 entrepreneur. And we can be those first checks so that they can get their idea off the ground,
Yeah.
not because it's going to be $1 billion idea, but if you don't make it a thing so people can try it and test it, you'll never know if it's actually going to work or not. And we need to solve that. I believe we need to solve that problem and push more entrepreneurs out of the nest faster so they can realize if they should keep wasting their time on an idea or if they should go work and help another entrepreneur because they love entrepreneuring, right?
So what would you have done with the person
You
that
don't
said,
have to be the singer.
yeah, sorry, like, we got a delay or whatever, something's happening here, but what would you have done with the person that came with you with the idea of the pet rock?
Oh, that's an interesting idea. The question that I would have asked first is, what is the problem that you're trying to solve with that pet rock? Who has the problem that needs to be solved with a pet rock? And why do you want to do this? Why is this so important to you?
Now
And if you can answer those three things,
yeah, you do know that the pet rock sold millions um
yeah,
of pet
right,
rocks.
right.
But
And I bet,
I'm not sure they would have been solving a problem except, you'd have a rock that you didn't have to walk or feed or whatnot, and it was your buddy.
well, the problem might have been that they didn't want a pet that would take off on them.
Right, right.
They wanted a pet that would just stay in one spot.
Yeah, so it's a weird example, sorry, but I mean, I just wanted to hear
No,
what
that's
you would
okay.
and say. Is there any product or service or whatnot you can share about some of the entrepreneurs you've had that have been really cool?
Um, so many. Um, I think, a couple that stand out to me. There's a entrepreneur team, husband and wife team in St. Cloud, Brendan and Claire Richards. When they came, the first time I met them, they were telling me about, this business idea that they had. They basically wanted to make, I'd call them like starter kits for schools to help schools raise money for the school, to help make it less expensive for the parents, to, gather up all the supplies. And I was like, I don't know if that's a business or not. Like, I'm not the judge and jury, but if you think this is an important problem to solve for schools and parents, instead of having them drive all over the hillside looking for all these supplies, and you can put it at one place and deliver it, they have taken that idea and worked through those early entrepreneurial processes to figure out how to bring a product like that to market. They've raised over $700,000 to get the business off the ground. They are serving so many schools around the Midwest and looking to expand. And I use them as an example of an underestimated entrepreneur. They've not run a business before, and now they're crushing it. I think they have 5 employees, the 2 founders. I think they're going to serve like 3,000 schools, and they've been a real success story. But they didn't just come through ILT one time, because you have to keep working on your idea. I mean, that's the thing, is you got to figure out all those subtle nuances,
Yeah.
and then you need to be able to communicate it to the rest of the world.
Yeah, no doubt. And one thing you said right at the beginning is you've got to have a great support spouse partner and support network behind you. ILT
Yeah.
being one of those support networks,
Yeah.
for sure. Couple other questions. One thing we say in LA is we need to have them keep them wanting more so we can do a sequel. So maybe we'll do that. But
Yeah.
really quick, what do you see the future being? I mean, since you got AI, you got technology, there's a lot going on. Things happen so much faster than ever before,
Yeah.
which is also another challenge for entrepreneurs because the entrepreneur down the street might the next day have something that beats you all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So, what do
Yeah.
you what does the future look like for ILT with respect to technology?
Well, that's a really good question. We've had a number of, businesses come through ILT. We have one that it just recently came through from Duluth, Minnesota, working on an AI idea, working in the metro transit stack system. They actually got into a really cool program called Y Combinator and are working towards like a $20 million valuation. The reason I bring that up is because there's a lot of technologies that, are in the horizontal space, meaning like AI can go into anything. And what I think is going to be like one of the next challenges in terms of supporting entrepreneurs is helping them realize how to leverage all of this new technology in their ideas to disrupt current industries. And so Ryan and Varun that are working on this idea to disrupt and really make massive improvements in the way that our metro transit systems work. Um, they're thinking about the problems that people have, and then they're using technology to solve them instead of just inventing a technology or saying like, I'm going to use this technology, but they don't really what problem you're really solving. And so I think as I think about my own business and supporting entrepreneurs with education and training is how can I leverage all of these technologies to increase the speed of failure? I need entrepreneurs to get off bad ideas, get to ideas that are more market viable, But the only way you're going to do that is if you get through a bunch of this early ideation process way faster. Because
Yeah.
to your point, we got to learn. We got to learn at a much more rapid pace. And so I hope that as we continue to go and support more entrepreneurs, that we can speed up the pace of our own students so they can learn faster.
Yeah, it makes sense. If it's going to fail, let's fail fast, and that's what they say. Fail fast, and then you got a better chance of winning at the next thing or an improved product or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
One last quick question. A client told me in 2021, he told me related to 2020, the pandemic year, that it was the year that flew by slowly, he said. And I thought
Yeah.
that was a brilliant line, actually. And we're still having ramifications of COVID. It sometimes feels like it was yesterday, sometimes years ago. But now we are
Totally.
fast and furious in 2025. Briefly, can you share what you're most grateful for and what you're most hopeful for?
Yeah. That's a great question. Um, I'm most grateful for my family. Um, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on in and around the world, and it is nothing else matters. And it sounds like, oh, that's really cliche to say, but like, I'm not here to, win over 1,000 people. You know, I enjoy being adopted because I know that as an orphan, that feeling left and feeling left behind hurts. And it's awesome having a family that loves and supports you. And that's what you need as an entrepreneur. And I'm most grateful for that for my wife, and my kids. And what I'm most hopeful for
Hmm.
is that, despite everything going on, there's a lot of good stuff going on in the world. And I think if we keep living our lives as servants to other people and think about what could I do for somebody else that could be a blessing in their lives, man, this world would just be amazing. There's already and there's a lot of good that is going on and has been going on. We can't forget that despite everything else that's going on. But how can you be a blessing for somebody else today?
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Pretty well aligns with we can all be leaders who care if we want to, and see other people doing it. And you're right, there's a lot that are doing it, and we want to keep shining the light on them and like people like you. So, hey, I'm grateful to have a new friend and who is a leader who cares,
Me too. Thank you, Mark.
and I'm hopeful for the same reason, because you
Yeah.
do. So, thanks for being on and everything you do, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thanks, Mark.